Good evening, everyone. I am here in Chiang Mai, Thailand, and today I wanted to talk about 4 types of speech that we need to avoid. Many people out there now are getting more aware that we need to focus on our mental health, our overall well-being, and that's a great thing. But for me, I wanted to make this video because on your way to having good mental health, I feel like one of the things that is lacking is the awareness on our speech, and also how does it impact our overall mood, our overall health, and I think it is worthwhile to talk about it. But first, we need to talk about why is it not being paid attention to, or why is there not enough focus on our speech and how to even speak properly. And I think one of the reasons is because look at the lens of how we're looking at our overall well-being. Keep in mind that the West, we're looking at our overall mental health through the lens of psychology, through the lens of mental health. So with that, then most of the strategies is to look at how we think. We also look at how we feel and the emotions that arise from that. And then the last part is then we look at the actions and the behavior that an individual displays. So that's one way and one modality of looking at our mental health. The other side is in the East, and I'm specifically talking about Buddhism. And when we are looking at an individual, we're actually looking from a different lens, and many people may not be aware of this. So instead, we're looking at one's thoughts. The second component of that is then we're looking at one's speech. And then the third part is we're looking at your actions. So already you can see that there is a different way and a different focus of looking at things. And why is that? And why that is because from the Eastern lens, these 3 things, thought, speech, and action, is because we're looking through the lens of the mind. How do we purify this mind? And for us, it's through this lens. So just one thing to pay attention to. Again, not one that is better than the other, not that way, but I just wanted to share so we have context of why this is important or why this may be lacking in focus. The second piece that I wanted to make this video about speech and how to be mindful of speech is because for myself personally is I come from the West, and coming from California, coming from America, we have this value of free speech. This is in our amendment. It's the First Amendment, and it's in our Constitution, and these are the rights that we have. We have free speech. We can say what we want, how we want, to anyone who we want, in whatever tone that we want, and this is something that is just part of where we come from. And there is a good thing to that, because free speech is important and it is a wonderful value. However, the second part that we need to pay attention to also is that, yes, we can say whatever we want to, however, whoever, whenever we want to, and again, little caveat there, but also what we don't pay attention to is that the speech that we display makes an impact on our mind. And from the lens of the East is that we need to be careful and we need to be mindful, is because some speech can actually taint the mind. It can cloud the mind, and I'm going to use a different word, it can darken the minds. So from our lens is really to get our mind as bright, as clear as possible. So again, I completely support free speech. I completely support everything, but I would just say be careful, because there's also a consequence to that. But let's get right into it. But for those who are working on improving oneself, pay attention to these 4 things that you should avoid when it comes to speech. false speech. Sometimes, actually many times, we'll say things that are not accurate. Maybe because we're not sure, maybe because we just have false information, and it happens from time to time, and that's okay. The part of false speech that I want to highlight that helps to impact the darkening of the mind or taints the mind is your intention. And many times people will say things that are not true. They will omit things. They will tell out flat out lies. Some people will give you half-truths, a quarter of a truth. You will bend the truth. There's even fake news apparently out there. But one of the key factors of will this darken and impact the quality of your mind is really what was your intention. And coming back to intention is, you know better than anyone, and you know whether you are saying, if that is the truth, it was accurate, or it was manipulating or misleading. So that's something that you have to check within yourselves. I think when it comes to false speech, I think many people know that it's not a good thing. But the next question that I always get asked is then, well, what if it was like slightly a lie, but like a half truth or a quarter truth, and I omitted something or I bent something? But for me is, I don't know how to judge that, and I don't know how to give you an answer of a consequence, but play whatever game you need to play with yourself. But for me, the most important part is when we tell a false speech, or when we tell a lie with the intention there, again, this is the key part of it, is that it darkens the mind. How much? I'm not sure. It depends on your overall intention. But I think this is something that we need to check with ourselves. And I don't know how to give you an answer that justify, I should do this, I should do that, but more of just be mindful that each time we lie with an intention, it clouds, it darkens, and it taints the quality of our minds. So just be careful. Divisive speech. This is where people intentionally try to create conflict or try to divide people. And we see it now more than ever in our society, where people use bullying tactics, people use violence, people use gossiping, but so many different strategies, but all to cause a divide, to pit people against one another. And I think one thing to point out is that for the individual who are doing this, it can make you feel good. And I get that element of it to get your needs met or whatever your goal is. But in that moment, it can bring this satisfaction. But again, coming from the lens of quality of mind and having peace for yourself, I would say be careful. With this intention, every time you use a strategy that actually divides and splits people, again, that's one more way that your mind is tainted and the mind is clouded, decreasing that purity of mind. So we need to be careful of this. Harsh speech. This can be speech that is filled with rage. It can display someone's anger or even aggression. And many people then with their emotions can use language that is so forceful. And a few things that comes to my mind when it comes to harsh speech is that, one, it's just a bad habit. And I know for myself, when I was before monkhood, working with foster kids, working as a therapist at the group home, the kids will The teenagers will use whatever language that they want, and they didn't see a big deal in that. Again, if I'm angry, I'll just speak in that moment. I'll say whatever I want to in any tone, directed at anyone, and that's fine, no consequence. But for me, it's such a bad habit, because when we keep doing this over and over, then what we see is when the kids go out into the workplace, when they go into social settings such as schools or new peer groups, automatically it just oozes out of them. They try to cover it up, but again, this harsh speech just will bleed into your daily life. So this is just a habit that will be in you and that you will carry. And the second part for me is just take the word harsh speech. Again, if we're looking from the lens of training one's mind, you're going to make your mind harsh. You're going to make your mind coarse. And for us is we want the mind to be more pure. We want the mind to be more soft, and we want the mind to be lighter and to be more refined. So if your goal is to have a better quality of life and to have more peace, having stillness of mind, then we need to be mindful of harsh speech. Pointless speech or idle chatter. This is the type of speech where people just talk with no purpose and also no benefit for yourself and also the listener. And I'm not sure if how many of you have experienced this, where people just ramble. And one way that we can describe it is really, the thing that pops up in my mind is really just talking to hear yourself talk. Just wanderlessly, just aimlessly, just chatter, again, with no purpose, no intention, and no benefit. So when we engage in this type of speech, again, it can affect and negatively affect the quality of our mind. So now that we know the 4 types of speech that we need to avoid, then what are some tools and some strategies that can be helpful for us? So let's start one by one. And the first one is not to talk so much. So after watching this video, I would give you the homework assignment to now start to pay attention to the amount of how much do you talk. When you're with your friends, when you're in social settings, when you're in the workplace, when you're with your family, but just pay attention to the actual amount. This is one way. Another way is don't talk so fast. And sometimes people aren't even aware, and they just talk and talk and talk, and the speed of it goes so fast. So imagine if you are a car and you're going 0 to 100. And when you're going at that speed, you can't pay attention to the little details. So for me, I would say, while you also don't talk so much, now slow down. When you're slowing down, you can check your intention. When you slow down, you can be mindful of what am I even saying? And these things will be more clear for you, and then you can start to observe yourself. Another tool that we can use is then to come back and check with why you're even sharing what you're about to share. And it's okay. And for me is not to talk down or not to criticize anyone. And I know it may sound silly or condescending, but that's not the intention at all. But I think we forget to try something that is so basic and so simple. We all want to connect. We all want to socialize and relate, and that's fine. But with that then is take a moment to just see, okay, I'm about to share this piece. I'm about to share this story. What is the point of that? What am I doing it for? And also by sharing this, will it benefit me? Will it help the situation? And also, will it benefit the other person? And for me, this is such something so wise that we can start to practice it. And when we are more mindful and intentional, you'll notice that your quality of conversations, quality of relationships will improve. So very simple, but take the time to come back to understanding why am I about to share what I'm about to share. A fourth tool that we can use is to maybe not spark up conversation with people who gossip. And what happens when you, let me back it up. How many of you have friends who just gossip? And anything that you share with these types of people, you already know where it's gonna go. We're gonna be talking about something else. Anyone? Show of hands? Okay. If you do not know someone who is like this, well, maybe it might be you. You know, but we all have people in our lives who just gossip. And a tool that can be helpful if you are trying to develop the quality of your mind is don't spark up conversation with those who gossip, because we know how that's gonna end. Any topic that you share with them, okay, sure, it may go well for a certain period of time, but next thing you know, you're gonna fall into that trap. Now we're gonna engage in conversations that divide people. We're gonna engage in conversations about someone else, talking behind people's backs. And let's now, if you've done it in the past, no big deal. I've done it in the past and it's okay. But moving forward, we can start to be more aware. And from this day forward, we can change this new habit. And I think overall, if we can be mindful of this, it will just bring us more peace and more happiness. So try this out. And a last tool regarding speech that you can use that will help you is if you notice that you just said something that is a lie, said something that is not truthful and you caught yourself, actually catch yourself and fix it in that moment. It's okay, and break that habit. Notice, there it is. It just happened. What I said with the intention, I know that is not accurate. Then in that moment, course correct and celebrate that. Because this is how we're gonna slowly start to improve ourselves. This is how we're gonna break those patterns. And when you can do that, the quality of your mind will start to improve and will start to purify. But there you have it. And for me, I just wanted to make this because on my own personal journey, this was something that I had to improve. And this is what the monastery taught me. The other thing too is because we see it with these new monks as they're doing self-development work. The speech is quite an important factor to one's overall well-being. And also for those who are watching, I just want to give you an extra dimension that you can focus on and take the pressure off yourself, but simply pay attention, notice, and start to improve bit by bit. But I think as a collective, as a whole, we can continue to work on this together, improve together, and go on this journey with one another. So with that, I hope this is helpful and that this is just one more tool that you can put in your toolbox and to be more happy and healthy. But I hope this is helpful. And as always, sending you all my blessings from Thailand. Satu.